performing Indie Dev Talks. If you missed the one from last month, just click on this link. And if you're curious about this interview, stay tuned, because this is going to be a very interesting interview, because I'm going to interview Aran, who made a game. Well, he made 100 games, and then one of them we are going to discuss, Stacklands. But we are also going to discuss his business model, which is very impressive. So don't wait any longer. This is Aran, and we are going to talk about Stacklands. Aran, welcome in the studio. I'm very excited to have you here because you made a very interesting game. To begin with, it's like Stacklands, but you also made like 100 different other games. Like, can you explain this concept?
Right, so my name is Aran Koning. I'm part of Sokpop Collective. We used to do a new game every month, and that was supported through our Patreon. We did that for about 5 years. We've made about 100 games in that time period.
So 100 games in 5 years. Every time period you have like a set deadline?
Yeah, exactly. So we're 4 people and we work separately. Every one of us had to make a new game every 4 months, and that would give us a new release every month. In 5 years, if you do a game every month, it doesn't quite add up to 100. For a while, we did 2 games a month. So at the start, for the first 2 or 3 years, we did 2 games a month. So in the end, yeah, we've made like 100 games that way.
Wow, that's impressive. And like, how do you keep on like having those game ideas? Because at a certain moment, I think you will be blank, right?
Right. Well, for us, it was always like never really a problem that we had too little ideas. It was generally always the opposite. And also what we did a lot, if we really like could not come up with any ideas, we would just sit down for maybe like an entire day. And then in a whole day, if you just sit down for a whole day, generally you'll come up with at least a couple game ideas, and they might not all be good, but you'll at least have some ideas. Sometimes it just helps to get started also, and then the idea will just develop as you work on the game.
Yeah, so, and how did this start? If we just take the last word that you said, how did you start with this project?
Right, so we started because we used to do a lot of game jams. We really liked making small games and stuff, but it was really hard to figure out how to sell them and what would the model behind it be. And so we decided to settle on this idea where we would just make a lot of games and then people would subscribe to get them on our Patreon. I think just making a lot of stuff got people interested in what we were doing, and they were like, oh, that's really crazy that they're making so many games. And so that's kind of how it all started, by just us deciding like, oh, maybe we should try to set up this Patreon where people can subscribe to get all our games.
Yeah, how was it? Like, how did you get those people interested in your Patreon? Because Patreon, you need to keep on producing, otherwise people will be like, bye.
Before we started the Patreon, we already had a bit of a following on Twitter. Before that, we were just mostly posting like GIFs on Twitter and like posting our small games there. So we had a shared Twitter account that already had some people interested in what we were doing. When we started the Patreon, it sort of started from taking some of the people from Twitter that were like already interested in what we're doing, and then trying to convince them to join our Patreon instead. I think that worked pretty well. Once we had that going, it started to grow from there. Like by making so many new games, there was always a few people coming in every month.
So you say you were trying to get them following you. So like, what were the things that you tried, and like which one did succeed and which one didn't?
I think the biggest thing that was just important for the whole Patreon was the consistency of making new games. Like we've tried a lot of stuff with like marketing and like approaching influencers and stuff like that. But in the end, the most important thing was just that we had a new game every month coming out. And I think that's the thing people were most interested in. Sort of consistency and the hard work was unfortunately the thing that worked best.
Oh, damn it.
The hardmanship, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a total different system, right? So you kind of already produced a game on Patreon, and then you got the game on Steam, right? Or like some, or not all?
So for a while we released some of them on Steam, but then at some point we talked to Steam, and we were interested in bringing some of these old games back. And at that point we had already made about 50 games or something. We got in touch with them and we had maybe an idea of doing a bundle of games. So maybe we do one store page and then you buy one thing and then you get like 20 games or something. But the people at Steam, they told us it would be better to just put them on individually. But we had already made 50 games at that point, so we had to make like 50 store pages, which was kind of crazy. At some point we just did one every day or something, or two every day. We got pretty fast at it, and that's when they also started coming to Steam. And since that was in 2020, and then since then we've just been releasing them on Steam at the same time, which is a lot easier than work back and make Steam pages for all the games you've made before that.
Okay, and then the Patreon is still on the side, right? Because I saw it was...
Yeah, and the Patreons also get Steam keys, so that's nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So for the community to keep connected with you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a bit of a mix, like partly for the Steam people and partly for the Patreon people. We released we give access to the Steam version to all the patrons. Yeah.
So, and you will plan to keep on going with this process, or are you going to dive into more DLCs?
We've changed it a bit starting this year. Like I mentioned, we used to do a new game every month, and now we've changed in that we didn't really want the set deadlines anymore. So what we do now is that we just make a game and we release it when it's done. It gives us just more freedom, essentially. That's what we wanted to, have a bit more time when a game just maybe needs like 1 or 2 months extra. It works a bit more relaxed. It does mean that we don't have the consistency we had earlier, but it also means that the quality can go up for the games, which is really nice. And then we're not as stressed out about making the deadlines.
Do you notice that your community is like, how do they react on that? Like, because they're getting every month a game and then suddenly they're...
Yeah, I think they understand because they also see like, oh, the quality will go up. Already the increase in quality between when we did 2 games a month and 1 game a month was huge. And so having this sort of extra time, I think they all, well, maybe not all, but a lot of people thought it was a good idea to make the change, so that was really nice to see.
Okay, and then we go to Stacklands, of course.
Yeah.
Was that a month game or was it a more...
That was a month game that was released last year in April. Yeah, and so in 20, what year is it? 2023. Okay, yeah. So in April 22, it was released, and then I worked on it for, I'd say about 4 months or something, 5 months in total. And then when it released, it sort of blew up quite a bit. Been for sure our biggest game of the monthly games we did. It got picked up by a bunch of YouTubers and stuff like that, and got a lot of people playing it. So that was really cool. So since then we've done extra content for that game. We're now doing a DLC. So that's been cool also to sort of take an existing game and work on it more and really take it to the next level. But I'd also like to go back and make a bunch more silly little small stuff again. So
is Stacklands your favorite game of all those different games from that you made in those months?
Maybe. I think it's definitely one of the games where I'm most proud of. So I think it's my favorite game for me that I've made. I just feel like it's a fun game to play, and there's lots of stuff you can do in it, and people seem to like it as well. I guess that's the biggest thing. You can just see that a lot of people like it. So, yeah. So
I hear that you still play it?
If I play it, not really. I don't know. It's really hard to play Stacklands for me. Because you know everything and you've seen everything. I think a big part of the game, the discovery and the exploration of it, and finding new cards and stuff like that. And I don't have that because I know everything that's in the game. So that's a bit unfortunate. I don't get to enjoy it in the same way as others.
About the discovery, the temple and the demon, what?
Yeah.
Was that intentional or?
Yeah, it was intentional. I just wanted to have a sort of abrupt ending at some point. Because when the initial version released, I needed to come up with an ending quickly, and I was like, okay, I'll settle for this, and you have to build a temple, and then something happens. I don't know. I like endings like that where you're like, oh shit.
What happened? Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So how did you came up with this idea with the Stacklands?
Right. So I've had this idea for a while of just in a way, a really simple mechanic where like combining two things, like, and the timer starts running, like you put a card on top of another card and you get a new card. I added the timer element to that like really quickly in like a prototype thing, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I could see this working for a big game. And then for a while there was a bit of a design problem where it's like, okay, if every card, if you combine two cards and it leads to a new card, it will always be sort of linear. So you would always sort of have the same combinations, you would always do the same things, and it would have the same result. So that's why the card packs are in the game, where you can buy packs to get new cards.
Yeah, some cards you can stack, but some cards like not, like the mines, for example. Like,
right.
I was like confused why you cannot stack the mines. I understand that you will get too much stuff, but
it's always hard to determine if for the game if things should stack or not. But I think generally my thought was that if a villager can go on top of it, then it probably shouldn't stack. Because then you just want the villager, you want it to be like one villager on every single mine, for example, instead of 5 mines, one villager mining all the mines. In a way, I think that makes more sense, because otherwise, yeah, it goes too fast, like you say. You get too many resources too quickly.
And like, what were your inspirations for the game?
I think a lot of inspiration was like just simple, like Age of Empires stuff, essentially just Age of Empires resources and like Age of Empires technology, and like looking at all these games that are like in a similar setting, because I don't really make games that are in like a fantasy setting normally. So I just sort of looked at that, or like medieval setting, and then tried to figure out, okay, but what if they're cards? So I think that was a big part of it. And also looking at like other Sokpop games, because we've made a few villager with other resources and stuff like that. So I stole a lot from that also, which is nice, because like if you steal from your own collective, then nobody really minds.
Fair enough. Well, okay,
Yeah.
So you say like the Sokpop kind of games. Like, okay, so what is a kind of a Sokpop kind of game? Like, is there something that bind them?
I don't know. I think for all our games, we try to do something unique. I think that's the most important thing. Like, one aspect of the game we try to make really unique in a way, like either it's the audio or just the design or maybe the graphics. That's, I think, always the main focus, trying to make something new in that front, and then working from there. So that's, I think, our main goal is like never try to make the same thing or something. Or that's for me, at least personally, the goal.
Yeah, and what is your role in the group?
So we all work individually. So everyone does everything. So I do both programming and art and music and sound effects and basically everything.
Oh, okay. So, like, not all Sokpop games are made by, could have been also someone else, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's one of the 4 of us has made that game, and then the others have just sort of looked at it and gone, like, maybe given some advice, but generally everyone else is pretty hands-off, like, and not that involved in other people's games.
But it's so interesting, because mostly that's like, because when you're a group, you think that you will use like
work together.
Work together, yes.
Yeah.
But you're like, well, it's nice to be on the same Patreon page, but let me do my own stuff.
Yeah. No, that's for sure a weird thing. A lot of people are surprised to hear that, but for us, that's always really important. Yeah.
That's something that I would have not thought.
Yeah. A lot of people are confused by it also, because our games look really similar and stuff. So people will like ask like, oh, how do you all have the same style? And we're like, oh, well, we just steal stuff from each other and like sort of look at each other's games a lot as inspiration. It's fine because it's all within the collective, and so that's nice.
Ah, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Kind of a mini community.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And you are friends?
Yeah, we met in university, and we've all known each other for, yeah, I guess like, I don't know how long. Probably like 8 years, 9 years or something.
So you're a real solo developer.
Yeah, basically, we're solo developers in a group.
Exactly, okay. And you made Stacklands, right? So
yeah.
So I can ask you anything about the game. Awesome. So
yeah.
Did it change a lot from, because if you make just games in sort of short time, right? Then you don't really iterate that much. So was it immediately clear I need this kind of artwork, or?
A little bit. The artwork was one of the things. Well, most things I think starting from the start were pretty set to end up in the final game, because you have so little time, you don't have a lot of time to scrap things and redo stuff. The art is one of the things where I got someone else actually involved, a friend of ours, Lisa Montel. She did the art for the game. That's the only thing where I guess I wasn't really involved, so I guess it's not really a solo game anymore. But it still felt like that in the beginning, but yeah.
And with the audio, you made the audio, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because they always say like you need to prototype a lot and like fail fast and change a lot, but
that's true. I don't know. It is, in a way, it is true, I think, but it's also just really nice not to have to do that. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like most of the games we've made, we did test, but never really quite in like a big group, like not in front of a lot of people, but we would like see each other's games and give feedback that way. So that is a way of play testing, I guess. And sometimes our games didn't come out as well because they hadn't been play tested enough. But yeah, Stacklands just hit the mark, I think, there, where it's like it was still pretty rough, especially when it released. There was a bunch of stuff that we improved after the release, but that was also fine. So
yeah, like which iteration do you think is like has been the most influential for the game?
Yeah, I think most of that stuff was like after it released and just seeing everyone's feedback. For example, one thing that's pretty subtle, but that wasn't in the initial release, was if you have two cards stacked on top of each other, there's a timer, right? But then if you take off the top card, it would stop the timer automatically. Yeah, it wouldn't really pause or anything. Like if you still held on to the card, then the timer would just reset completely. So if you pick up a card by mistake, it would reset the timer. And it was really annoying. And that was one of the things that we fixed when the game was already out. That was also nice because people were like really happy that we fixed it. Otherwise, nobody would have seen the struggle that it caused.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because then they know what they...
Yeah, what they were missing.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah, there are also like some random animals that pushing your cards, right?
Yeah.
Like the bunnies and the chickens.
Yeah, that's just one of those things that's really kind of annoying, but then there's stuff you get later in the game that you can use to fix it. That's one of the things where I was like, no, I want to keep it. I think it's funny, and just be a bit stubborn also about it. Like, okay, we're just gonna keep it, and people will complain about it. But it's always really funny because when people complain about it now, there's always people in the comments like, oh, just build this and this, and they won't bounce around anymore. And so that's really, that's funny to see.
Yeah, or kill them and get meat.
Yeah, kill them. That also works.
So it's management, but also like it has a lot of quirkiness in it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's definitely also a bit of a Sokpop thing, I think, where we like try to make things a bit quirky or a bit weird. Like, I think that's just funny to have in games, like just funny moments where it's like, oh, there's a rabbit. Oh no, it's jumping and messing up all my cards. Like, I don't know. That's something where I've like over the year, I've learned to appreciate a lot more, like the silly stuff that's maybe not ideal for the user experience, but it's really funny. So we keep it in.
Yeah, I noticed quite a lot of Easter eggs. Like, what are your favorite Easter eggs?
Oh, in Stacklands, I think that you can make a dog. You can get a dog villager, which was really for a long time a mystery. I think still it's like one of the most Googled things about Stacklands is like, how do I get the dog? Because it's one of the last cards a lot of people need, and it's not really explained, but it means you have to give a bone to a wolf, just like in Minecraft. And then you get a dog villager that you can then use to, do everything that a human can also do. So that's really cool, I think.
Nice. Is there a maximum of cards on the table?
No, but there's at some point there's a max size. Like there's a max card count normally that you have to increase with the sheds and stuff. There at some point you just run out of space, so that's sort of the other limit where it's just impossible to manage at some point.
Yeah, I just kept not that many villagers, I think.
Yeah, no, it's hard to have a lot of villagers in the game, I think. Yeah,
because they need to eat so much. Holy crap, they eat.
Yeah, they need to eat and they need to be busy. You have to keep them busy. yeah, it's hard.
You were coming up with other DLCs after this one, or?
Yeah, we want to do at least one more, but maybe we'll do more. It really depends on what people think of the first one, I think.
It's kind of your baby project, basically, that you
Yeah, exactly.
get big over time. And like, so now you kind of also stop with making the other games, or?
So I haven't really made that many. I did one game since last year, and that's about it. But the others have been making games, and they were working on some really exciting stuff too. That's the nice thing about working as a collective also, is that the rest is also there and like making new stuff, and like that's really cool to see.
And you keep each other motivated as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really, really useful thing about it. So we get to motivate each other and help each other out when we're stuck. Because especially as a solo developer, that just happens a lot. So it's really nice to have others that can help you there.
During Stacklands, like, was there a moment that you were really stuck?
A few times. Like one of the things I mentioned with the card packs, that was before coming up with that solution, that I was stuck on the game for a while, and I actually didn't work on it for a while, and then Diamond suggested that, and then I started working on it again. There was definitely a point where it was like, oh, don't know if I'll finish this. But I'm glad I did.
Yeah, it's such a short game, so you think like, oh, this is going to be like fast forward.
No. It's never easy to make. I think with every game, you at least get stuck at some point, or at least there will be some point where you're like, I'm not sure about this. But then it's really helpful to have others tell you like, oh, okay, no, you should just continue it. Or I think this is really good about the game. Just focus on that. Like, that's really helpful to have.
I just noticed something, and that's, I think, maybe an issue when you make smaller games, but like Stacklands has been copied a lot.
Yeah, it has been, but I don't really mind that much. There's some clones that literally took our assets. That sucks. But other than that, people that sort of take the idea and twist it a bit, even if it's not that much, I'm fine with it. Like, yeah, I don't really mind.
Okay, it's very cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like pretty chill about it. Like, as long as it, like, of course, all the stuff that literally uses our assets like really sucks. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to get them taken down. Like, we try to, and it works sometimes. But if people are just inspired by the game, even if they just take most of the game and like decide to make something that's really based off of Stacklands, I'm like, yeah, go for it. Like, it's legal, and if you think that's cool to do, then do it, I think.
Okay. Oh, so super chill.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make sense to get angry about it or anything. Like, it's just cool to see that that people are like really like the game and like they want to make something that's like inspired by it. So it's a compliment, I guess.
Yeah, it's inspired by, right? I think Nintendo sometimes should also have this
exactly.
opinion a little bit more, but because you started on itch.io, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw on your game there were like a lot of comments about that your game has been
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
You started 5 years ago.
With the Patreon we started 5 years ago, but as Sokpop we started in 2016. So
if you would go back in time and say to your younger self, like, what would be your advice?
I don't know. I think just keep at it. Like, just make a lot of games. That would have been my advice, I think. And like, it's hard, but it will be worth it in a way.
Okay, just basically doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That sounds very like we knew what we were doing. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, but I don't know. We just did a lot and just doing stuff. I think that was the most important thing. I think that was just the most important thing, and we did do that. Definitely something I would tell myself, like, just keep at it and like make a lot of stuff and talk to people and work with people, and I don't know.
Okay, interesting. So you would just like, I just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way, the only thing you can influence in a way is like, just keep at it and like be consistent about it. I mean, we could have probably done better marketing or could have made different games and stuff like that. That's in the end, that's not really what I mean, of course it would have mattered, but I think the most important thing is that we, in a way, didn't really give up or something. it's a bit of a boring answer, but I think it's true.
Of everything, right? Consistency and keep on going.
Yeah.
Because you learn while you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But there were not like some groundbreaking things that you were like, if I would redo this.
Right. Oh, maybe the Steam stuff. Like for a long time, we didn't put our games on Steam because I guess we were a bit worried about people not liking the games because they're like small games, and generally on Steam, that's not really the audience. But I think that was that was definitely a big change, and that also helped us financially a lot, putting the games on Steam. So that's something I would have maybe, would have been like, just put them on Steam. Like, it's way smart.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point, right? Because you say, just keep on going, but financially, was it like you were doing this as a side thing? Like you have another job on the side?
I think when we went on the Patreon, I before that I had a full-time job at like a software company, and that was for like half a year after graduating, but that was pretty boring, so that's when I quit. And then at the start, for the first couple of years, I did quite a lot of freelance work also on the side, but they were all games, so that was nice at least. Like getting to make games at least on the side. So, but it was, I've been pretty much making games full time for 6 years now.
Okay, so and Sokpop was just like on the side.
Yeah, and then over time it grew. So at first I did quite a lot of freelance and not that much Sokpop, and now I just don't do freelance anymore and just work on my own stuff.
Okay. Okay. So most likely your advice would be also to have something on the side to be able to stay in your room.
Yeah, for sure. Like that was helpful. Otherwise, like we couldn't have kept doing it also, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of viewers, like, they are either starting or they're just like interested in it. So like if you're going to say, just go for it, and then
No, definitely. I mean, I don't think that's good advice. No, generally just telling people to go for it. For me, I always had this backup of going back to like an IT job in a way, like, because I studied computer science, so my idea was like, if nothing works, I can always go to some big company and get a job there and do some boring stuff for a year and then go back to games. But honestly, I never really expected, because games was definitely a hobby for me when I first started. So I didn't really expect for it to go this way, where it's like, okay, it's my real job and like full time, until it actually happened and stuff. So it was always like, oh, it would be really nice. Having the expectation that it will like work out is probably not a good idea, because for a lot of people it doesn't, work out.
Okay, it's a different view. I mean,
yeah.
But I like that, like different views, right? Different journeys in a way. You're more like, just go for it, but keep some side job on the side.
Exactly.
Just keep plan A and plan B close together in a way.
That's true. That was I always had that as plan B, so that makes it a bit easier. But yeah.
What kind of games inspired you for making games? Like mostly like the games from your pals, or like also?
For me, a lot of Sokpop games have inspired me to also keep making games. Like, just cool to see what the others are making, and but also other games. I don't know. I really like a lot of indie games, but I don't play them that much. I just play them maybe nowadays. Just play them for half an hour or something, and then I'm just done with it in a way. But I do really love seeing what other people are making and sort of basing stuff off of that.
So like doing a lot of different stuff. That's basically what you like to do, if I hear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying out a lot of different games quickly, and then I don't know, just played some Untitled Goose Game yesterday for the first time, and I was like, yeah, it's really good, but I don't know if I'll play more. Like, I just love.
It's a very short game, though.
It is pretty short, but I don't know. I always get impatient, so I normally, for one session or for like 2 hours, I generally think, okay, that was good. Now I'll go do something else.
Okay, fair enough. Because Stacklands is kind of a card game, right? Did you also get a lot of inspiration of card games?
Not really. I played Cultist Simulator a few years back, which is kind of similar to Stacklands, and that was a bit of an inspiration, especially at the start, but it also diverged pretty quickly. Not really card games, no, not necessarily. No. Like I like Age of Empires, I mentioned, but that was more of this for the setting and stuff like that. Let's see, other games that inspire me. yeah, it's just hard. I always find it hard. Like what games really inspire me.
Or what
Just-
would inspire you? Like at a moment that you're working on your own, like, and you feel like it's all too much. What are you going to do?
Oh, I go cycling a lot. I really like cycling and being outside and stuff like that. So that's a big thing for me. It's like that's a nice way to get away from the computer and do other stuff for me. Whenever I don't feel like making games anymore, or for a while, or just kind of burned out on a project, I'll be like, just do some other stuff like cycling. Or...
And if you say burnout, like kind of how would a week of Aran looks like?
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty consistent now. I just work 9 to 5, like really boring stuff. Most days I just spend a lot of time making games, and then I have to do some administration stuff as well and some meetings. But generally, I spend a lot of time behind the computer and make games, which is nice because that's what I enjoy doing, just sitting behind the computer.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you don't feel inspired, you just go outside.
Yeah, I go outside, and then until I want to sit behind the computer again. It's nice.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, and like, how did you find your audience, or like that's because you said it was on Twitter, but like, yeah, people are on Twitter, but how did you find them?
I think back then it was easier because like we just posted a lot of GIFs that went like viral of our games. And back then there were just a lot less people on Twitter, and like it's just a nicer place than it is right now. So
it is going to be it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's gonna be absolutely ruined, which is kind of sad because for us that's where we sort of started. Back then that worked really well. I don't think it will work now anymore. Like you could just tweet stuff and like get followers. Now I don't know. There's so many people now, and like it's way harder.
So are you the person that is already on Blue Sky or on?
I'm not on anything yet. I'm just sticking with Twitter until it absolutely dies. I think I got the Stockholm syndrome on Twitter. I think I am not leaving until it's absolutely garbage, and we're getting pretty close. I think the name change makes it bad.
Yes, it's like it's not Twitter anymore.
Yeah, it's not Twitter anymore. Which maybe it's good. It's a good wake-up call for me to stop using it.
What would be your top number advice for starters in the indie development?
I think there's two things. One is make a lot of stuff, and then the other thing is to meet a lot of people. Just going to events will like inspire you a lot to keep working on games, and like you'll never really know if like a connection you make will be useful. Could be like a couple years later that you're like, oh, I knew this person from this and that, and just getting yourself involved is really, really valuable. Not even in like a boring business sense, but just in like it will inspire you, it will motivate you. At the same time, if you're making a lot of games, that will they will also play the games. Like maybe they will play the games would be nice if you meet people in the industry and like stuff like that it will sort of snowball, and then from there you can sort of grow. I think that's what we try with Sokpop.
Yeah, and like how do you make the decision to go to some events, like, because well you're not going to Gamescom?
Yeah, I don't know. I like going to events where there will be a lot of like indies or people that are interested in doing similar stuff to me. And for Gamescom, like there will be some indies, but it's not really an event that's focused on that. So I like going to Amaze a lot. Amaze is probably my favorite event because it's like so easy to talk to people there. Everyone has a lot of time, so I think events like that are like perfect, where you just get to talk to a lot of people in a casual way and talk about games or not talk about games. Like either way, they're both really, really helpful, I think.
Okay. That's good to know. Yes. Okay, I think we covered almost all the elements.
Covered everything.
Covered everything. So any last words that you want to share before we closing off?
No, not really. I never really have closing words. No, or follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter while it's still alive. Maybe by the time this episode goes up, Twitter is already dead, but I tried.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much for this interview.
Yeah, thank you.
And if anyone has questions, please give comments in the questionnaire, like comment in the questionnaire. Comments.
Questions in the comments.
Yes, put down your questions. We will always be able to answer the questions as well.
Yes, for sure.
Wow, as always, so much information. I really love it. If you also enjoyed it, please give a like and subscribe, because upcoming video is going to be very interesting. I'm going to interview Pat from Australia, and he started painting and then he made a game. So if you're curious about that one, please notify yourself, because that is also going to be a very interesting interview. Thank you all for watching. Create more, enjoy more. Bye bye.